Good evening again, everyone. We're joined tonight by a career law enforcer, Frank Coots, who is Director of Campus Safety at Hamilton College and also a retired major with the New York State Police.
Yeah,
Welcome.
We want to thank you for joining us. So much to talk about tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's first of all dive into the fact that what we're seeing around the country, these lone gunmen with high-powered weapons and taking target at places like restaurants and shopping malls, churches, places where we bring our families. What advice would you give to the general public who, we want to live our lives and be as normal as possible, yet we need to stay vigilant as we're being advised by so many law enforcement agencies now?
And I think that's very important. You use the word vigilant. And I think more important, before we start this, is that I think we all feel this. As Americans, we feel this, and that our hearts go out to everybody that it affects. But as you said, being vigilant is what's important, and we have to live our lives. I think after September 11th, we were encouraged by our government officials to continue to carry on, to show that we can't be intimidated by these people that do things like this. I think that holds true today, that we have to carry on. However, that doesn't mean we don't be aware of our surroundings. It's always that situational awareness. When you're out and about, remember where you are. How do I get out if I need to get out?
Frank is a man of great experience. We want to ask you, do you think law enforcement agencies across the nation are prepared to handle worst-case scenarios such as we saw over the weekend? I
do, and you saw it in Dayton. And Dayton and Syracuse are similar in size, and I think that the Syracuse Police Department, they would be ready and willing to act like they did in Dayton. And in El Paso, do I think that any city in New York State and across this country is ready? Yes, I think they're ready, they're prepared, they train, and unfortunately, you'll never be able to stop someone to take that type of hatred and try to kill people. You'll never be able to stop that, but we have to be ready as law enforcement officers to respond. Stopping it starts at a higher level than us, than at law enforcement. It's from our officials.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much involved, so many different areas that we need to look at for solutions. But let's talk about shooting fatigue, because that's an issue now. So how do we, prevent becoming immune to that? You hear it so often, and now all of a sudden it becomes fatigue.
And I think that we all experienced that, because if you asked me what was the shooting just prior to what happened in El Paso, I probably couldn't tell you that. But I think what's important, and it's really incumbent upon the media, is that we don't stop talking about it, and it's incumbent upon our elected officials that they don't stop talking about it, and that we don't stop asking them about it. And when you're out in public, when you talk to your friends, your family, that's the reason why it always becomes important. If you are the ones that don't stop talking about it, if you are the ones that don't stop thinking about it, then it'll always be important.
Frank, the El Paso shooter had an AK-47. That's fine for a police department or the Army, but does it really belong in streets? And should it be outlawed?
Well, yeah, I mean, you ask a very difficult question, because that's probably one of the biggest debates that we'll have. Do I see a necessity for it for an average American? No, I don't. However, I don't make the laws, but I think that anybody that's a sportsman, anyone that's a hunter, I think they see the ability to possess a weapon that they're going to use at target shooting or in hunting. They would agree that these multi-capacity weapons of war and of death, there's really no place on any of our streets for those.
Do you think that will be a tough argument, though? How do you, convince the NRA, gun enthusiasts who support the Second Amendment, focus on the Second Amendment, to support any kind of reform? It's a tough.
It certainly is. However, I think that there's data that's out there that a great number of Americans do support things that are going to prevent these types of tragedy, these types of events from happening again.
What do you think of the red flag laws that gives judges discretion because of their online postings, perhaps people acting in a strange manner? Should that be all right?
I think what's important is that our neighbors, our family members, when they see something that's not normal from people that they know, whether it's family members or whether it's their neighbors, whether it's their friends, there's so many different avenues to report that. So when you have a red flag law and it's going to take a weapon away from someone that may be a danger to themselves or to others, I think we have a great process in place that gives them the ability to have due process in that if a judge or a court of law decides that this person is still safe to have one, then that's fine. But we have to err on the side of caution when it comes to the safety of human beings.
And there are a lot of conversations now about full carry or concealed carry permits for handguns. So there's a huge debate about that. Any thoughts on that?
Our Second Amendment is pretty widely defined, and I was a law enforcement officer for a number of years, and I never came across a situation where someone felt that I was abridging their Second Amendment right. So I think that when you are given the huge responsibility of carrying a weapon on your person, you have to go through certain steps. You have to go through certain legal steps to ensure that you are safe with that. I don't have the answers. I do not. But I think what's important is that we don't stop looking at those.
You've been serving as campus security director at Hamilton. What would you do if all of a sudden someone deranged came on campus carrying a weapon?
Roger, you're asking me a very difficult question, something that I haven't yet, by the grace of God, had to confront. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I don't. But am I prepared? Yes, I'm prepared. We have a great relationship with law enforcement, whether it's the Kirkland Police Department, the United County Sheriff's Office, or the New York State Police. We expect them to respond, and we have a great deal of students and faculty and staff that are expecting law enforcement to be there for our safety.
All right, we're showing some video now of an active shooter training inside a school. Very realistic. They even had some actors come in, and I think that's as close to reality as you can get. They had fake blood on the walls. Tell me about this type of training, because it really kind of opens your eyes and helps you kind of push past that initial shock. Is that something that you think everybody needs to go through for police?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I believe that even other emergency service workers are now engaged in that type of training, because we have found that when you train, you will act that way in a real situation. And if we don't train, we don't know how we're going to act. So we have to provide the training, and it has to be ongoing. You just can't do it once and say, oh, everything's great now. It's an ongoing, it's a constant thing. And I think that you see any law enforcement agency, they have been engaged in active shooter training.
Now, certainly you watched the coverage over the weekend of the two incidents. How do you feel police reacted in this situation at both places?
We know that in El Paso that the shooter gave himself up. We know he surrendered. They responded. They ensured that the scene was secure. In Dayton, Ohio, they were there. They acted appropriately. They acted as their training taught them to do that, and they neutralized that perpetrator quickly and prevented a lot more deaths and a lot more injuries.
All right, Frank. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right. We will be right back. Stay with us.